Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this edition of Grassroots Racing Show.
Welcome to the Grassroots Racing Show. I'm Roger Thompson, your host for today. And you know our motto at the Grassroots Racing Show is, if the subject is racing, you'll see it here. And today we have a very unique type of racing and a person I want to introduce to you. His name is William Gatzke, and William races. He's also a member of the Armed Forces, and we're very pleased to have him here. I want to thank you, Will, for your service in the military. And I know to a military person that means a lot, because when I say thank you for your service, it means thank you for all of the hard work you put into your career, the dangerous assignments you take, the basic training you went through that was dangerous for you, and we as a group appreciate everything that you do. I want you to know that. And I also want your family to know that we recognize the sacrifice they make when you're deployed and you're gone. And you're away from home for long periods of time. So if you're involved and see a military person someplace, whether he was from World War II or the Civil War, tell that person that you appreciate their service, because it means a lot to them. And I want to start this program by saying that to you. Now, Will, you have a very particular type of racing that you're involved in. Tell us about it.
What we got here, Roger, is a fifth scale HPI 5B, originally designed to be a buggy, a dune buggy. I have taken and modified the body post and made a modified body here. So now I've converted the buggy into a dirt oval race car.
And does this car handle and do everything you want it to remotely? Is that the way it's done?
Yes. This car, I basically have the same setup adjustments that you have on your full-scale race cars. I've made my own scale table that I scale the car with, and I can do the camber and caster adjustments as well.
What's under this body?
Well, Roger.
Well, that was quick.
You'll see underneath the body here. Some may recognize this is basically a weed eater motor, but it's been modified to fit into an RC car. And then we have, all the functions and controls are done right here inside this box with a battery.
Now, this battery and the control box, that's like a circuit breaker or a circuit board?
I have, basically it is a little circuit board in there. It's called the receiver that matches up with the radio right here and controls the throttle servo right here, and there's a steering servo in the front that controls the steering.
All right, as I look at this chassis, I see all kinds of possible adjustments. Can you change a caster and camber and your wheel alignment and offset and those kinds of things?
You'll see right here, Roger, you can adjust your caster right here, or your camber. I have steering rods in the back here where I can tow in and out, both front and rear. There are blocks that go inside the hubs right here that will allow me to tow the rear wheels in and out.
So for our guests out there, you can set up this car just like any race car, and it's ready to go racing.
Yes.
What size tracks do you race on, Will?
Normally, I prefer smaller tracks, around 250 feet, 100-foot straightaways. I have seen some tracks out there as long as 600 feet.
Now, what class of car is this with the body that you have here?
This would be the modified class. There's also a late model class that some race in, and there's also a sprint car class.
Is this considered an outlaw modified car?
Most tracks normally run, you're either running box stock or you're running modified.
All right.
Meaning the engine, someone has gone into the engine and modified the head on it.
I understand. All right. Now, where do you race these?
There is a track up in Lincoln, Outlaw Raceway. There is one in Endicott, Nebraska, Endicott Raceway. And then there's a track up in Iowa, Dead End, up in Webster City, Iowa.
And normally, how many people do you have that show up at these tracks and race these types of cars?
You could have anywhere from 4 or 5 to 15 or 20 of them.
All right. So you load up the family and head to these tracks, and do you do the driving of the car? I guess I refer to it as driving. You run the controls and
Control, yes, I do. We actually built this car. My wife bought these cars while I was deployed. Her and my son put the very first car together.
well, good for her. We're going to be back in just a few minutes, folks. So after these messages, we'll see you at the Grassroots Racing Show.
You're watching the Grassroots Racing Show.
Welcome back to the Grassroots Racing Show. I'm your host, Roger Thompson, with special guest, Will Gatzke. We are going to go racing, folks, with one of these cars, and I want you to get an idea of what it really looks like to have these cars racing around a racetrack. You are going to be surprised. But remember our motto, and that is, if it involves racing, you'll see it here at the Grassroots Racing Show. Now, Will, we're at a racetrack and we're running. What can you tell me about this track and the cars that are there?
The cars that you see on the track right now are similar to the one that I have right here. They're starting to race. They're going to line up here. They give them the go signal, and they hit the loud pedal, and there they go.
Now, where are you standing and the rest of the people who are operating these cars? Are you all together?
To the left, just off the screen right there, there's a driver's stand about 4 feet up in the air. That way you can get a good overhead view of the whole entire track. Everyone is standing right next to each other.
Now, obviously, each one of these drivers is on a different frequency, so someone's not driving your car for you.
That's the nice thing about technology, Roger. Currently, the radios that we use operate on a cordless phone frequency. So, no two cordless phones are the same. So as long as you are running a spectrum receiver and radio, no one can ever be on your frequency, nor can you ever lose range until it goes out of sight.
That sounds a lot more high-tech than I'm used to. What if somebody calls you up on your phone while you're racing?
Well, they're going to be driving the car then, right?
I see. All right. So there are other hazards. Now tell me, the track that you're running on right now is how large?
This track here is about 260 feet.
Okay.
Relatively flat. I've talked to the track owner, and he's gone and stretched out, made the back stretch more of a D shape now.
And I noticed when I watched the clip here about this racing that just like the real cars, the big cars, this is a real car, but just like the big cars, handling is a very important situation here. I always said races are won in the shop. And I see some of these cars are not handling as good as the others.
If you look there, in my opinion, when you get your car up against the wall like that right there, you're looking for the thick, loose dirt to keep your car from spinning out. Your good drivers, your good handling cars, they'll want to take the shorter route around the track, and they want to get around the bottom.
And I watched one of these cars, it looks like it had a push. A push means the car did not turn when the wheels were turned.
Right.
And what was the cause of that?
He has probably either got his left rear too hard or the right front too hard, so that when he goes in, the tire's not really getting into the track. It's just sliding across the top.
All right, I understand that. Now, all of these operators are behind the wall. How long are these races? How many laps will you guys go?
It varies depending on the track you go to. I've been to some tracks, your heat races were 20 laps because the races go so fast that if you went much shorter than that, you wouldn't be out there very long at one time.
All right, now, does the engine ever, do you run out of fuel or electricity or whatever it takes to run this during a race? How do you know how much of that to have in the car?
Well, normally, Roger, I can fill up the fuel tank there.
This runs off of gasoline?
Two-stroke. It's a two-stroke engine. I run regular gas with a two-stroke oil mixture.
I see. Okay, that explains that. So you have to fill it up depending on the size of the race, and you
Right.
determine how much fuel to put in the tank based upon the race?
Normally what I do is the tank is designed, this car should be able to run for almost an hour filling that thing up.
Amazing.
Filling the tank up. So I normally fill it up, plus it helps me add weight to the car to help it handle better through the turns.
Now, I understand in your family you're not necessarily the best operator for these. Is that correct?
Not necessarily. I used to be. And then my sons came up and they passed me right up with it.
And you can blame this on your wife, I take it, because she got you into this?
Well,
How did that happen?
Well, I went to the hobby shop one day and thought the car looked nice sitting up on the shelf, and the next thing I know, I was racing on-road, and that was 16 years ago.
I thought you were at deployment someplace.
Well,
you were
it was
deployed?
right before I deployed.
Is that right?
And then in 2011, when I was in Afghanistan, that's when I found these, because when I was up in the office, in between work, I found these on the internet and decided that we was going to try these back in 2011.
And where did you first try them?
We lived in Tennessee at the time, up at Fort Campbell. The closest track to us was the north side of Knoxville. So we would drive 300 miles on a weekend, pay $5 to race on a little track, probably 200 feet long, and win a little 50-cent trophy, and had the best time of the weekend.
Well, great. So your wife did a good job then.
Yeah, she knows more about the setup than I do.
Is that right?
She put all the pieces together on.
All right. Is Cody the other driver you're referring to?
Yes, I have my youngest son, Cody, and then my oldest son, Kurt, races them too.
Great. All right. Do you guys ever race against each other?
Well, we try not to.
How many of these cars do you have?
I have 3 modifieds, and then I have a late model. I will have a late model and a sprint car.
Great. Now, we're going to see the sprint cars now. Why don't we take a look at the sprint cars? We've got time. I'm kind of partial to these sprint cars myself, but now the sprint car scenes we're going to see, where are they running? Do you remember?
The sprint cars were running at the same track that we just saw there.
Great.
On the sprint cars, you know, they have the big wing on the top, wing on the front there. When they have those cars on running right, they're on a rail around that track.
And you guys never back off, do you?
Oh no, wide open.
That's all right. We're going to see the sprint cars at the next segment, and until then, we're going to get set up and ready to go. We thank you for watching this segment of the Grassroots Racing Show.
Keep watching. We might be filming racing action at your track next.
Welcome back to the Grassroots Racing Show. I'm Roger Thompson with special guest Will Gatzke. I caught you, Will. I looked at that film about the sprint cars, and you filmed real sprint cars someplace. Those are not radio-powered cars like this. How do you explain that?
Well, believe it or not, Roger, those are fifth-scale open-wheel sprint cars.
That's incredible, because if I did not know that, I would think I was watching a sprint car race. I see the lines the guys are taking, and the speeds that they're running around that. That's a 260-foot track, you told us. That is amazing. And are the drivers in the same position, the operators in the same position as they were with the modifieds?
Yes, the drivers are standing up on the driver's stand up there. Some tracks you go to will have a couple of driver stands around the track for the drivers wherever they prefer to stand at. But most of the time they're on the front straight right there by the scoring loop, about 4 feet off the ground.
From what I'm seeing, this takes a lot of concentration.
Yeah, you don't want to be thinking about other things.
Yeah.
The cars don't break very often, but when they do, it can be costly.
I'll bet it does. It is. That's amazing, the lines these guys are taking and all that. You guys are really pushing those sprint cars. Now tell me, if I'm a new guy and want to get into this type of racing, how do I do it?
Well, the best thing to do is to go onto Facebook and look up Large Scale Dirt Oval. I have about 1,800 followers on there right now.
Will I find you there?
I will be there.
And will you help me determine what kind of car I want and how to find it?
If you send me a message, let me know what you're interested in doing, I'll let you know how to get set up in it.
Very good.
And who you need to talk to.
How much money am I going to spend for, say, one of these sprint cars I'm looking at?
If you want, for a sprint car, you're looking probably $2,000 ready to go. Okay. That's with the radio, the car, the body, and everything.
That's first class everything.
First class everything.
Now, how do I learn about the setups?
Well, you go to the
This is very
track.
complicated, my friend. When I look at this suspension that you have here, this takes a pretty knowledgeable racer to make all of this work.
Well, yeah, and if you're getting into it, if you got the basics on car setup, a lot of drivers you go talk to, they'll let you know what they have in their car, what kind of tires they're running, and a lot of the drivers will get you set up.
Okay, and I can get to them through the Facebook.
I can help you on the Facebook. When you go to Facebook, message me. I can give you the setups that I use. When we go to the track, if you see me at the track, if I've changed anything, I'll let you know what's working best for me.
That's incredible. We don't normally see people share that kind of technology with each other. The other thing I was wondering about, Will, is that if I was a racetrack owner and I wanted to run these cars, say, as a special event at my races or even on a separate night, can I get to you through the Facebook?
You can message me on Facebook. You know, currently right now I'm stationed at Fort Riley, so my distance is limited on where I can go, how far I can go away from posts. But I will do, if there's someone in that area, I'll hook you up with somebody in that area to see if we can get races set up.
And what's that Facebook?
Large Scale Dirt Oval.
All right.
Large Scale Dirt Oval.
And by the same token, if I'm a businessman or something and I want to sponsor one of these cars, is that available as well?
It sure is. You can, same thing, you just go to Large Scale Dirt Oval and let me know. Send me a message and just let me know you're interested in it. And we'll get the process going.
That sounds great. All right. Are there any other people from out of state that come in and race these things against you guys?
When we was racing in Texas, we had them coming from Louisiana, North Texas. Here, they come from Missouri, they come from Kansas. We're coming from Kansas up there.
Are there any sanctioned organizations that are involved in this as well?
Quarter scale does, fifth scale not so much with sanctioned bodies.
Is this the fifth scale we're looking at?
This is a fifth scale RC.
All right.
When you get into quarter scales, those are custom hand-built cars. A whole lot more expensive and a whole lot more rules. When we get to the fifth scales, since we really don't have a sanctioning body, there's not a whole lot of rules out there.
You mean that I can put in a bigger engine than you've got if I want to and still run with you?
The size of the chassis is only going to allow you to get the motor so big. And bigger motor doesn't necessarily mean faster car.
And are there any rules against how I modify this little engine?
There's, as long as you do not run a Reed engine, there are Reed engines out there similar to what you see in the old two-stroke motocross. There are Reed engines, a whole lot more expensive, but most tracks won't let you run the Reed engines.
Can you distinguish these Reed engines or other modified engines from the standard? In other words, in sprint car racing, I can tell when a guy's running a 410 in a 360 class.
You can tell. Currently, you know, you have a stock motor, you have 3 or 4 horsepower. A guy comes in with a modified motor, he's putting out about 7 or 8.
Wow, that's a big difference.
So you can really tell a difference down the straightaway.
That's a huge difference. Well, I think you've answered just about all of my questions, except where do I get the $2,000 to buy this? Can you get partners to go in with you and do this? Are there teams like that where you can join up with somebody who's got another truck and some cars?
Well, right now, you know, it's coming up. It's raising up with the economy. Things have slowed back down a little bit, but it's coming up. More guys, more tracks are building. You know, track promoters are building near their house. So you can put a half acre. You can put a 250-foot track on a half acre. Then you have car owners out there. You know, if you have car owners, they want to buy the cars and somebody else race them, just like in big race cars.
I understand that you and the family are going shopping this afternoon.
Yeah, we've decided since we first got here that we're gonna go look at some houses.
And I'll bet it's going to have some land with it for a track. Is that right?
Most definitely.
We'll see you back after the break. Thank you.
Welcome back to Grassroots Racing. And now back to our host.
Welcome back to the Grassroots Racing Show. I'm Roger Thompson, your host, with special guest William Gatzke, Will. We have discussed the racing of these 1/5 model cars and what they can do and where they will go. As I said at the start of the show, if it involves racing, it's going to be seen at the Grassroots Racing Show, and we have seen some type of racing today. This is very exciting. For all of you old racers out there who's no longer fit to drive cars, I'm not talking about myself. My brother is rather aged. I'm going to refer to him to look at these cars and this class, and maybe he can find a class of cars that he can win in. So we'll see how that goes. I can say these things because he's not within earshot. So it's Roger Thompson, Grassroots Racing Show. If it involves racing, you will see it here. Until next time, we'll see you at the races.
There is exciting racing action every week on Grassroots Racing Show Night at the Track. You don't want to miss a single episode. If you miss any of the shows, be sure to look us up on Facebook or at grassrootsracing.org.